Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we also have Amy.
Hello.
Hi, Amy.
Hi. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use, and thank you for watching on YouTube. And in the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
Correcto mundo, Tom.
What is the correcto mundo?
I don't know, my Spanglish.
Okay.
Yeah, did I say that last time already?
You say it every episode.
I thought I just said correct or something.
No, you say correcto mundo.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
All right. Trying to keep it interesting and fresh for the listeners.
Yeah. You know, that intro is like, it's long-winded. So
Right.
I can, like, when I'm saying it and I go and I'm like, you know, going through the whole thing, I'm trying to take a breath, but not breathe too heavy because.
But you're heavy breathing now. Yeah, that's a cardio issue, Tom.
No, it's not.
Might have to practice that. I know.
No, it's not.
Anyways, glad we're here, Amy. We wanted to have you on the show because obviously you have a hell of a story that, you know, deserves to be shared. And, you know, it's something that Ben and I are rather passionate about. And I'm not going to give that out yet, but we'll get to it organically. But, you know, when we have people on, it's just organic conversation. There's nothing, it's not scripted or anything like that. So why don't we just get right into it, you know, talk a little bit about yourself and, you know, Ben and I will interject and ask questions as we go, stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and then ultimately kind of like what led into your addiction and stuff like that. We'll go from there.
Okay. I'm from Pennsylvania, the Pocono region, and I grew up, I'm an only child. My father's alcoholic. He drinks a little bit now. He's like a dry drunk. But growing up, it was tough because he drank every night after work. He would go to work, drink till like midnight, come home. And my mom was a teacher, so she was the enabler. She gave me a lot of love, but my dad was not there emotionally. So as I grew up, I wasn't too upset. Like I was happy, but I was sad at the same time because I knew something was going on in my house that I didn't have control over. There wasn't any physical violence, but just the emotional part was really what really got me later on when I was able to grasp some of these feelings. I did well in school. I went on and did sports and was able to go through school with nothing really. I didn't know too much was wrong with me until I hit like middle school and high school. And I had this shift of thinking from like a goody two shoes to like, now I want to be bad. And it was from people putting pressure on me, I think, to be perfect. My mom would set me up for everything, like good grades, studying. And I was able to fall in line with that until I wasn't. It was about 12 or 13 where I just was starting to say, F it. Like, I'm going to change myself. And that's something I can remember to this day of a change in my thoughts. And that's when I took my first drink at my house. It was nighttime. I was hanging out with a guy that I knew. He was a friend of mine. I liked him. And we were hanging out. He was older. He was about 15. And we drank peach schnapps for the first time. I did. And I felt that warm feeling. Like, yeah, I like this. Like, this is effing awesome, basically. And that's when it took over my, and I got drunk. And from then on, that day, I drank after schools at my house. And slowly my friends were smoking pot, like real pot, not this stuff they have nowadays with the chemicals. Like it was, it was just pot. It was pot. And I smoked, and that took hold of me for months, probably like years, like 13, 14, 15. So that definitely was a gateway for me, pot and alcohol. and my best friend was doing heroin. So I hung out with him one day after school. It was like 15, maybe 14, 15. And I snorted it for the first time. And we would get it from Philadelphia. We'd drive ourselves and get it after school and come back. And we'd make it back before our parents came home. So we did that routine, like the rest of high school. I snorted it. I had it in school with me. I'd put my book up, snort it behind my book. And I just thought that was normal. I had no repercussions yet, and my usage escalated heavily. Like from 1 to 2 bags, I was snorting like a bundle in matter of days time. So accumulation of years, I become a heroin addict easily. I graduated high school, barely. I had been doing the work, but I wasn't there, mentally. I was just floating by.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. 15. So you started heroin at 15?
Yes. Yeah.
What was there, and I don't know if you can answer this, was there any like thought of, oh my gosh, this is heroin, I'm doing heroin at 15 years old? Or was it kind of like, it's just another drug, what's the big deal?
That's a good question, because I think back sometimes, like, how was I not scared of that? But I wasn't. It was just another drug to me.
Ben, when did you
that
do
time.
heroin for the first time?
15.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember.
You guys are real junkies.
Well, for me at that point, I think there wasn't any fear at all. But I had also already done like ecstasy and all that stuff. And I think my thought process behind that was like, well, my ecstasy pills back then, they always put a little bit of heroin in them to like make them calm. So in my mind, I think I already thought I already did it. You know what I mean? And I had a friend that did it regularly. And so I just think I felt comfort and safe in that. Like, oh, I won't name drop her right now. Yeah. I don't even know if she's alive, to be honest with you. But yeah, it took the fear away, I think, knowing that she was one of my good friends and she did it all the time. And it was just another. You know what stuck out to me with what she said? The way you described that first drink. I think for some people, I don't think this is always the case. You hear both versions where someone's like, it wasn't too eventful. But the passion that you spoke with, and I don't even think you did it intentionally, but like that first drink for some people is just such a pivotal moment in their life and something you'll never forget. And I got that feeling that's like what you were expressing. Like you'll never forget that initial warmth, that like hug from the inside.
Sorry, I had to make a quick intermission. So my dad called, and 2 days ago I took him to Publix because he wanted a candy bar, and we ended up buying about 10 candy bars. And so he just called now and wanted to know where they were. So I had to tell him it's 10 o'clock in the morning. You're not eating a candy bar.
What kind of candy bar?
Anything, and Heath bars, Baby Ruths, just all the classics.
All right.
Whatchamacallits.
Whatchamacallits.
I like those.
Yeah, me too. I had one
good.
last night. So I mean, that to me that's fascinating that to even pick up heroin at 15. But in the end, like, listen, I picked up drinking at 12, 13. It's just it is what it is. But I want to fast forward now so you graduated high school.
Yeah.
Did you go to college or no?
I did. I went to East Stroudsburg University 4 years for psychology, and I graduated. But it's a good segue that Ben did just before I was into these like club drugs, designer drugs like ecstasy, ketamine, dust, all that stuff. And I did it in college like the whole time. And I would go to raves like days of the week, weekends. But I studied and still was able to do good. I got like 3.2 GPA.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that I didn't realize how much parallel was there. And like the details are definitely different to some extent, but like so much of what you're saying, something that jumped out to me as well that aligns with my story is like you were this goody two shoes, and then if I understood you correctly, you said you made a decision to just be bad. I had like one day in particular, I had turned in every single homework assignment my entire life. And one day in my junior year, sitting in, what class was that? It wasn't statistics. It was some other math class. I remember what the teacher looks like and stuff. But I just remember snapping and being like, I'm done. I'm doing no more of this. Screw the system. Yeah, and I ate a couple of hits of acid that morning that hadn't quite kicked in yet. And I was just lost my mind and like went from, I remember making a decision that I was no longer going to conform.
Yeah.
And like, again, then they put me in all the classes where like, they just wanted to get me through high school because I ended up with the dean and all that stuff. And they switched all my honors classes and whatnot to the class where you get on the short school bus with the stick with the nail in it and you just go pick up trash all day. Because I had already done enough to like graduate basically. It was just like, how do we get this kid through without getting him expelled, so to speak? So it comes down to like what you were just saying. Like you got a 3.2 GPA, all that stuff. Like we're able, intelligent, friendly people, you know, and just something inside is just missing and empty. And drugs and alcohol fulfill that. You know, we're not dummies by any means.
So let's continue down the journey. You graduated from college, and then what?
Yeah.
And so you maintained. So you were doing the designer drugs, and were you still doing heroin during college?
Off and on. I couldn't maintain the habit as well as when I was earlier. I didn't do as much. I would do it like once in a while.
Right.
So that kind of led me to think, oh, maybe I don't need to do it all the time. It wasn't as acceptable to me in college because I was trying to uphold a better standard. So I would leave it. I'd get clean off of it, leave it, and then pick it back up a little bit, which probably is confusing to some people, but that's just how I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In order to be around my parents, my boyfriend's parents, boyfriends, I was like, no, I can drink and do like other drugs, but heroin, you know, people think that's bad or it has this, bad stigma around it. So I kind of wanted to leave it alone for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you graduated college, did you go off into the workforce or what did that look like?
I did. I interned and got a job at a place called Wordsworth. It was a detention center for adolescents. And I worked there and I was taking OxyContin at the time, and I nodded out on my first 2 weeks of work. No, I think I made it months there, excuse me. And I was on suicide watch with a teenager. It was just him and I in a room, and he was watching TV, and I had to watch him all the time. And I'm here sitting on OxyContin, and I nodded out, and the kid left the room, and they found him, and he was okay, thank God. He didn't hurt himself, but I got fired. So, and I went on to do jobs like that. I got another job after that because I really didn't have a criminal record yet, and I had a degree, so I was hireable, and they didn't know about my issues. But shortly after the second job, I'm about 20 years old, I checked myself into rehab because I just couldn't go on the opiates I felt at that time. So I went into detox, and that's when my journey in rehab started, detox and rehabs, because I would go on to get clean off. I'd get detoxed off of them, come out of rehab, be on methadone or Suboxone, and continue on that for a few days, and then get off and use heroin again. And this continued till I was about 30 years old, of detox, rehab, at least 2 a year. Yeah.
And that started at how old? 20?
Yeah, 19, 20 years old. So I wasn't quite done with college, but then it was right at the end. And I graduated and just continued to do that cycle.
And so this was kind of the direction that I wanted to head because, if you guys have been listening at any length of time up to this point, Ben and I's stance on Suboxone. It's not that we're anti-Suboxone, but we are kind of anti-Suboxone in a way. I mean, it needs to be used in a certain sort of way. And correct. I think what you're going to hear here is somebody that kind of And Amy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of fell victim to what Suboxone really can do to people.
Yes, I abused it.
Yeah,
basically.
so let's get into that. So
Sure.
Unless Ben, did you have something you want to say or no?
Let's be sure to circle back. I don't know that it's the
Sure.
appropriate time, but she just said she abused it.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people are under
yeah.
the impression you can't abuse it. I just want to leave that there for right now, but let's come back to that.
So my first question, Amy, and now we're going to start pivoting more on a Suboxone journey.
Sure.
When you first went on Suboxone, how was it presented to you, and what was your knowledge about Suboxone, if you can remember?
Sure. So I was in the state of New York at a year-long rehab. It was, I'm not going to say the name of it. That's all right. And before that, I had gotten out of a detox in Albany. I was living in Albany, New York, and the 5-day detox had given it to me there. And I had gotten it in Pennsylvania first at rehabs only. I didn't know about private doctors yet. I moved to New York. I get it again because I'm obviously still using. And now I'm given an opportunity to get it when I leave. So I've done a 5-day detox, and the professional there says, we'll write you a script for when you leave so you can have it. And that's the first time that I had it in my possession when I left a facility. They, under the direction of the professional, said that it will help with cravings, and you will take it and you will not get high. It will protect you from opiates. Yeah, and so that always stuck in my brain. All right, it's like bulletproof. Like, okay, I can go out, because opiates were my love. My first actual drug love was like a person to me. And I thought, okay, if I really don't want to do this, like, it was starting to give me detrimental effects, like feeling sick, feeling worthless. I was not able to do my jobs anymore. I was losing money, things like that. And I had never experienced that. So I thought, all right, here's this magic pill that will help me. And it was I had insurance, so it was always affordable to me. So I get out, I'm taking that, and it's going okay. I'm able to work, I'm able to drive, I'm able to whatever, be a citizen, go to a bank and not steal, not rob, not do anything like that. And then I'm approached with someone doing heroin again. And I thought, well, what do I do now? Because basically before that, I was not in the drugs. Like, I had been alone in my apartments, whatever, trying to work, trying to be manageable. And then someone came over to my house with bags of heroin and did it right in front of me, and I didn't want to do it. I said, I'm not doing this today. But years later, I learned that I learned how to manipulate this Suboxone. Like, you can stop taking it and still, I learned how to do certain tricks with it. But I always went back to it. It was, at that time, I didn't know yet, but it was becoming a drug to me, like the use, the maintenance. And I had never tried to stop using it because I knew there would be a withdrawal effect. So I kept using it.
There was so much there.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw this out there.
Sure.
I also, too, as many of the listeners know, have my journey with methadone and Suboxone. Methadone's the devil. I will say that is the most physically addictive drug that I've personally ever experienced. Then they move on to Suboxone. But what I want to say is Amy's not alone in the way that Suboxone was pitched by medical professionals. And I think it's pertinent to bring up right now. Y'all follow Netflix. There's the show that just came out a couple weeks ago, I think, called Painkiller. But it's basically about how OxyContin got introduced to the market, how they said it was non-addictive, this, that, the other, which, I did the whole doctor shopping thing down here, but got hooked on Oxys as well. Being down in South Florida, it was like the hub for OxyContin.
Yes.
But at the point when Suboxone came out, I was in Minnesota, and I was actually introduced to it on the street first. It had just came out. They were still the pills, the little octagons or hexagons or whatever they are, the orange ones. And I just remember my buddy being like, hey, man, I got this new pills called Suboxone. And I think I bought a couple off for like $7 a piece or something, 8 milligram ones. And He's like, yeah, you just take this and you have no withdrawals and you can get yourself off heroin. Because any good addict at some point, we're like talking about, oh, I need to get off heroin. I need it. We say it every day probably at some point.
Yeah.
But in my mind, street knowledge, this is a magic pill. Get to the point where I'm in detox medical facilities, same kind of thing. I was told the same thing. It won't get you high. It's not addictive, this, that, the other. And I wanted to come back to the fact what you said earlier about you couldn't. We're told even today by medical professionals that don't know any better, you can't abuse it. That's a crock.
Right. That's a straight up lie.
How are you abusing it? Can you explain that?
Sure. So my basic usage of Suboxone went on from 2002 to 2023. And yeah, I got it from doctors.
What's that, 19 years?
Yeah. 20. 2003.
21.
Yep.
21, yeah.
Yeah. And that was before the New York, or that was after the New York incident. So I've been getting it from private doctors that long.
I want to reiterate that. Don't lose your train of thought.
Sure.
So in case you missed that, 2001, 2002 to 2023.
Yes.
You were getting Suboxone from private doctors the whole entire time.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
And the dosage, so for me, the maximum dosage was 24 milligrams.
Mine too,
like right
24.
off the bat.
Yep.
And that's a high dosage. And out there, if you want to look it up, that's pretty much what you get when you're first coming off of heroin. Then it should be decreased slowly over time, whatever. It's really up. So my doctors would leave it up to me, the addict, which I think is completely imbecile. Like, how are you going to leave that decision up to the addict? I'm going to stay on the 24 for as long as I can. I had a few good doctors that would reduce me to maybe 4 milligram. I was down to 4 milligram at one time. But did I choose to do anything with it? No, I stayed on it. But this is the kicker. It opens me up to wanting to drink more. I became alcoholic night and day for about 10 years. Then I moved on, and I haven't had a drink since 2018. But I never thought I would be that alcoholic. And I was drinking with Suboxone, which the doctors will warn you, but they didn't know that I was drinking too. Mm-hmm. I would pass the urine tests. I would get urine tests every time I went to an appointment. Nothing was said to me about alcohol. I mean, it was told to me, do not drink, but they couldn't catch me drinking. So of course I'm, good, whatever. After I shut that down, then my Suboxone doctor gave me benzos. Because they told her I was anxious. Because I stopped drinking, and I'm going to circle back to something. I had extreme anxiety on Suboxone. Like, I would be so jittery and so amped up. I mean, it wasn't like a speed high. I mean, I've done cocaine, I've smoked crack. It wasn't like that. But your brain chemistry is moving so fast that I could feel it. Like, it was intense. But that gave me a euphoric pep every day. And that was a high to an extent, right? Okay. And I don't like to, I'm not glorifying that in any way, but that kept me addicted for as long as I could remember. Because I thought, I'm getting it from a doctor. I don't have to go on the streets, and I feel good.
So I used to walk into the doctor, and this goes to the behavior and the lifestyle of being an addict. My mentality before my doctor's appointments was, what do I say to make sure that the dose does not get decreased,
right?
That hopefully it gets increased. And in fact, like, so you touched on kind of like saying the right things. Mm-hmm. As addicts, we figure out real quick what to say, because I learned this in the methadone program. Like, if I failed a UA for heroin on the methadone program, the therapist And doctor would say, oh, that's because your methadone dose isn't high enough. Your cravings are too high. So you're craving heroin because there's not enough methadone. So, and I would just go in there, and every time I went in, oh, your dose just isn't high enough. And they just kept raising the roof on that, raising the roof. And so the same thing transferred over to Suboxone for me, where when they ask you how your cravings are, I'm like, oh yeah, my cravings are still super bad. And
it's true.
It's the same.
It's true.
So they're literally your drug dealer. I would walk in with a game plan of what I'm going to say to the doctor and how I'm going to present physically. It's the same as going to a drug dealer. The same mind games, if you will.
Yes. And I got the same excitement. Like I would be excited driving there. It was, yeah. So, and I've done methadone as well, but I've only gotten it from the street, and it definitely, that is definitely an addictive thing that could have happened to me, but I thought Suboxone was better, like just easier and not as bad as methadone, which is complete bull, because they're both horrible for that type of thing.
Go back to you got the benzos.
Sure.
When was that?
Around 2016, 17, I was prescribed Xanax first.
Okay, so I want to just two things. So from 2002 to 2016, you were kind of on this Suboxone journey.
Yes.
Any legals in any of that time?
Yes, I had 2 misdemeanor paraphernalia charges, probation violation. I went to county jail for a year in Pennsylvania, Luzerne County.
You went to county jail because of probation violation,
Yes.
which was probably possession, or you peed dirty or something?
I was on house arrest. I just couldn't stay sober.
Now, this is all on Suboxone.
I would stop taking it. So
exactly the point I wanted to bring up.
Yes. So it was off and on. I only used heroin in that time, maybe 5 times of that whole time. But I did. I would just stop taking it and use the heroin, then start taking it again, totally shifting my body and creating more havoc.
Right. Yeah. So and I know they're out there, the people that are like, oh, well, she just wasn't ready to get clean. That's why she goes back to the heroin. I understand that part. But we have to face reality in the fact of she has no, and Amy obviously speak into this.
Sure.
You know, you're so accustomed, and this is my whole freaking issue with MAT programs, especially to this extent. Yeah. Did anybody in any point of your getting prescribed Suboxone ever come to you and say, hey, Amy, you know, you've been on this for a year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Have you thought of what it's going to look like to come off of this? And maybe have you thought of that there's, you know, underlying reasons as to why you are taking Suboxone for so long? Because the reality is, you know, Amy, we're going to have to face that music at some point in time. So as your doctor, let me, you know, at least make an introduction to that, and let's come up with some sort of game plan to, like, education, anything of that.
I'm glad you asked this, Tom, because no, there was no talk ever of what it's going to look like if I get off. How long I've been on it? No, I've had about 5 different doctors. So think of that, 5 times whatever. It was about years stints with every doctor, and no doctor ever talked about even side effects. I had to look it up. I had to have my husband help me look up things because. Anyway, the side effects are ridiculous. Nobody ever talked about that with me.
I'll throw this out there too. Like, now there's doctors out there that are completely naive and just, I'll just call it what it is, dummies. The pharmaceutical company comes out and say, we have this new pill that's a Suboxone and it cures opioids, and the doctors just run with it. But then you also have the ones who do know better. And if you look back at the opiate epidemic with the doctors, where they were involved with Oxycontin, Roxycodone, all that stuff. I don't know how it was up there, but down here in South Florida, back with the Oxycontin, the doctor shopping, they didn't a lot of them didn't even take insurance. It was just $300 for the visit and the script. You walk in, give them your $300. You picked up your scripts. They usually had like a little pharmacy next door to their doctor office. But Suboxone transferred into the same thing. I'm just going to call it what it is. There was doctors out there just continuing to be greedy, and $300 a client. Why would they ever have you come off? It was the same type of thing. Like so many of these Suboxone clinics, at least back when I was on Suboxone, they didn't take insurance. It was $300 a visit once a month, and the line would be out the door. It was no different than the OxyContin epidemic.
It's one of those things that, and I'm not saying that all doctors are bad. And I know, Amy, you're not saying that either. Neither are you, Ben. But
our doctor at Rock is the bomb.
Yeah, of course.
So, and I'll throw that out there. She's an addictionologist, though.
And let's also throw out there that we are an abstinence-based program, which we're going to get into.
Good.
But the fact of the matter is that, listen, and I don't want us to put our tinfoil hats on or anything like that. But, pharmaceutical companies are in it for one thing, and that's money. And I get it. And I have many friends that are doctors, and they say, a lot of the whole we get paid by how many prescriptions we write is not necessarily true at least from what they tell me, and they could just be wanting to save face for all I know. But even if that isn't the case, if you look at a typical doctor's, I'm just going to call it caseload, they have to see, and I imagine in a Suboxone clinic or a methadone clinic, you got probably 200 or 300 Amy and Bens knocking on your door any given 8-hour shift or 10-hour shift. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, even if the doctor did and does realize, okay, this is, Suboxone is an addictive substance, so on and so forth, they don't have the time to go into the education with you. Right. And I'm not by any means taking the sides of the doctors. All I'm saying is that, you tell me, both of you, when you went in to see the Suboxone doctor, like how much time did you actually get to spend with them?
And that's a good question. I had one actual male doctor who was very good at helping me try to develop goals, plans, things like that. So I'd see him maybe a half hour. But normally, I should have gotten somewhere with him, but I wasn't ready. Normally it would be 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. And, Ben, what about you?
I've had both experiences where, generally speaking, it was in and out in 2 seconds. Like, doctors get a rap for these days anyway. But then I had this one lady, she was a ARNP that worked in the office. She basically claimed me as her client in there, and made sure I saw her every time. We just had a relationship. And she would sit with me for 45 minutes and talk to me. But here's the thing. She was getting up there in age, and she disclosed to me as a client that she was leaving the practice and she was going to retire because she was too heartbroken. I don't know what made her confide in me. I'm still on Suboxone, still an addict. But her and we just had a connection. And she said to me, I'll never forget this. She said, Ben, I've been doing this practice here for 8 years. And she said, in the 8 years, I've had one young lady successfully taper off of Suboxone. She said the rest have either died, continued active addiction, or I've had to administratively discharge them from this program. She's like, one success story in 8 years. Yeah. And she was just being honest with me. And that was my push to get away from Suboxone for me personally. Her just being straight up with me, calling the practice a failure.
Right.
And she was part of it, but she just told me she was too heartbroken. She actually had tears coming down her face.
Wow.
And kind of just wished me the best. She's like, I know that you really want to be sober in your heart. And I just hope you get this one day, Ben.
Wow.
Good for her. All right. So I know we're bouncing around a lot, but I want to go back to the benzos. Okay. So 2016, you're from 2002 to 2016 off and on Suboxone, not taking Suboxone when you want to take heroin, so on and so forth. You have some stints in jail. Mm-hmm. 2016, you get prescribed benzos.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 2017, 16. Yes, sorry.
What was that like and why?
I went to my Suboxone doctor one night and I said, I'm anxious. I have anxiety. And we talked about it for like 5 more minutes. And she said, all right, I'll give you Xanax. And that's what I wanted.
You remember the milligram?
Yes, it was 1 milligram, probably 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Which is pretty, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and then it was too much. I was abusing the Xanax. I knew. Like I'd get the bottle of 90 and it'd be gone in like 2 days. So I went, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I forgot I ate the rest.
Yeah.
Would you put them in your freaking cereal bowl?
Well,
I had a buddy that used to, every single time he got a script of Xanax and Roxy's, he would accuse me of stealing them. But I would literally be there watching him. He blacked out on Xanax, just eating them by the handful. But he'd turn around a couple hours later and like want to murder me. Ben, you stole my Xanax. Oh, dude.
Oh, so it wasn't like he was trying to hide the fact, like he actually thought you took them.
He actually legit thought, we went through this every month when he got his script.
So how long were you on the benzos?
So I'm on them until this year. March of 2023, I went into a rehab facility in Connecticut and got off them for the first time since 2017.
Now, and now we're going to start getting into the, how do I want to put this? We're getting into the here and now, I suppose.
Sure.
What was that?
It's really windy out.
Oh.
There's a hurricane on the West Coast as we're recording. Are they getting hit right now?
Right now.
I don't want to
right now.
I don't want to squirrel, but you know.
No, it's really windy here. Okay, so the benzos, you went to a treatment March of 2023, so earlier this year.
Yes.
And so what made you go to that facility?
I was out of Klonopin. I had been abusing it, or I'd been switched to Klonopin probably a year after the first Xanax use. So we're looking at 2018-ish. I quit drinking. Now there's an even more reason for them because I go into my doctor and I say, I've quit drinking. I'm anxious. I have so much anxiety. Sorry, I say that loosely because that's what I use to tell her as an excuse. I did have it, but anyway.
That's what we were talking about earlier, the game plan of what we're telling the doctor. She had it down to a T.
And it was the same doctor, and she gives me Klonopin now. So Klonopin is different than Xanax. Same class of drug, but it acts longer than Xanax. Mm-hmm. Well, now I'm starting to lose memory. I'm like forgetting things at home because I've been taking a benzo for a couple of years now. Like fast forward to 2023, my life has become unmanageable. I'm right back at the start of when I took that first drink. It was incredible. I was losing things. I'm shopping compulsively, and Doug can attest to this. My husband. I've spent thousands of dollars shopping. Anyway. So I've hit a bottom with the benzos, and I could not get any more from the doctor. I'd been calling her for early scripts. Finally, she said no to me, and that was a pivotal moment. I'm like, what? She said no to me? Like, this can't happen. So I'm out of my drug of choice, and I refuse to go to the streets. So I call a rehab. I'm like, this is it. I'm done with this anyway. But I did. I chose to go get detoxed off of it. I come out of the rehab in Connecticut. I'm home for 28 days. I was not working a program. I do work a program of AA usually. And I've had experience in that since I quit drinking because that's what helped me quit drinking. So I come home from the rehab in Connecticut and I'm not feeling well. I'm not feeling right. I don't tell anybody though. I continue to do my daily chores. I have 3 children. I'm doing the mom thing. I'm doing the wife thing. And I'm just not feeling good though. And I start the mental relapse. I start that process. I'm like, I'm just going to call this doctor back. I'm going to get the pills back. And I did. I did that. And I ended up taking 60 Klonopin, 60, in a matter of like 24 hours. I blacked out, was in handcuffs, and now I'm in Florida.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Just to really hit home the point here. I heard you earlier say something along the lines of you did heroin a handful of times.
Yeah, on the program.
So over the course of 21 years, let's call it.
Sure.
That 21 where you started Suboxone up to 2023. What percentage of time was actual street drugs and what the rest was like from doctors?
I'd say about 20% street drug, 80 doctors. Because I would do cocaine and crack, and that was obviously street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. In 21 years, 80% of that was supplied by doctors.
Yeah.
If that doesn't paint a picture for you.
Well, they definitely don't. Again, we're making very blanket statements. There's good doctors out there.
There is. And I want to reiterate, too. Tom said it in the beginning. There is, in my opinion, proper use of Suboxone, detox purposes, short term.
Yeah.
And I also look at if it's going to keep somebody alive, I will, as much as I hate methadone, tell you that it had my tolerance high enough to where like it was impossible for me to overdose on heroin. Right. Like I could do a shot of heroin that could kill an elephant, but because methadone was in my system at such a high level, like my tolerance was just through the roof.
Sure.
So in essence, while it ruined my life, there's a small chance it also saved my life. But that was
it kept you alive.
There was no way. That's no way to live. And I want to touch on that real quick because I do see this. For instance, because of my position, you know, I'm in a lot of these Facebook groups about recovery, and once in a while, somebody will throw up one of those posts that says Suboxone's not sober, and like because they want to see the comment section, and you'll see people who are on Suboxone defending it, which I get. You know, like they're like, "Oh, Suboxone saving my life," this, that, the other. But then if you click on that, and this is a generalization, there's some outliers out there, but this is what I see. If you click on their actual profile, they're saying how Suboxone saved their life, but if you look at the rest of their profile, their life is so freaking unmanageable, and they're talking about how free they are because of Suboxone in this comment section, but then the rest of their posts are like every day before for the last 4 months is, oh my God, life sucks. I want to kill myself. Like it's just a quality of life thing too.
Well, and that's been our stance for the whole time has been, you know, there's no argument like for the pro Suboxone people, whatever. I mean, listen, it's just like politics. You're not going to change somebody's mind. But I would always, and I invite people all the time to, if you want to come on and debate this, by all means we would. Our stance on this has been the whole time, one, it's trading one for another. You can't argue that. And two, if you are pro Suboxone and it is keeping you alive, so on and so forth, and it saved my life, you can't argue the fact that it's helping you thrive. Because it's been, you know, our experience, and this is what this is the next part. We don't understand or know what thriving in sobriety can be until we actually give it a shot. Mm-hmm. And for the people that have been on Suboxone for, you know, however long, a month, 2 months, 10 years, 20 years, you don't get that opportunity to thrive. And so, of course, you're going to be pro Suboxone. It's because you don't know anything different. And so until you have people that actually rally around you and say, no, there is a different way. There is, like, contrary to what you believe, contrary to what all your doctors are telling you and your friends group and stuff. Because that's the other thing. Like, you know, when I was an alcoholic, I never hung out with sober people. You know, so if I'm somebody on Suboxone maintenance, I'm not going to be hanging out, and I know some people probably do, but I'm not going to be hanging out with a bunch of abstinence-based people. You know, and that's just, and I'm not an opiate addict or anything, so I don't even know if that's a fair claim to make. But in my mind, it makes sense. Like if I'm on Suboxone maintenance, I don't want to surround myself with people that are going to talk about how abstinence is the only way to go.
The other parts of that too is if you're on Suboxone maintenance, because I've seen this. You probably don't want to show up to a 12-step meeting where people are going to be saying, oh, Suboxone's not sober, because you're not going to feel welcome. Maybe you're somebody that's on Suboxone and really wants to work 12 steps and really wants to have a better life. But like you're saying, you don't want to surround yourself with those people either.
Yeah. And in the end, I mean, I think look, in the end, like, Amy, you're phenomenal. And I hope and pray to God that you never go back down the Suboxone road, but in the end, like, it's your journey, and I'm a very, like, hey man, as long as I can look over or review the past couple months that you've been here, and us as a facility, we know we put our best foot forward in educating you and helping you through this process, then, I'm okay. And, granted, I don't ever want you to go back on Suboxone, and we would be the first to say, no, get your fucking ass back here, but that's how passionate we are about it. But in the end, it's very client led. It's very individualistic. And,
I do want to jump into the here and now with the Amy thing, but there may be some parents that are listening, for instance, that their kid is on Suboxone. And there's just a couple things that I want to say real quick for educational purposes. We said earlier it can be abused. I'll just throw it out there. Like, people snort it. Yes. They do monkey water.
They
shoot
it.
Yeah. Monkey water is where, like, they dissolve it down in water and then they snort it.
Okay.
So the way that they're doing it can be abused. The other thing is Amy said earlier that doctors will say it doesn't get you high. I'll just draw the analogy that I'll use, or example, I guess, is that if I do a gram of heroin every single day consistently, eventually that gram of heroin will not get me high either, because my tolerance goes up. Max dose for Suboxone is 24 milligrams. If I'm taking 24 milligrams of Suboxone every day, yes, my tolerance goes up. I will no longer get high.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it doesn't get you high. It just means your tolerance went up, and you're at that
it's
point.
It's just maintenance at that point. Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there. Like, maybe there's a parent out there whose kid's like, oh, it doesn't get me high. But then you're wondering why their life is such a mess in every other aspect.
Yeah. And I'm a big one too. Just do the research. If there's anybody out there who's not sure, look it up. Like, I didn't look anything up. I just trusted the fact that this was going to help me. If I would have researched a little bit more and maybe looked at some of the side effects, looked at how long it was supposed to be used, maybe my journey would have changed. I'm not sure, but I definitely didn't educate myself well enough.
Did you ever read the little pamphlet on the Suboxone?
I did. I would read it vaguely, like look over it and then put it down.
Just for fun, what flavor is Suboxone?
Orange.
That's wrong.
What is it?
Yeah. The pamphlet. This blew my mind too.
It's an orange color.
This goes to show it is orange. I
don't know exactly.
I thought it was orange, but if you read the pamphlet, it actually says lime.
Oh, I never saw that in the pamphlet. I always wondered. I did, because it didn't taste orange. It's kind of nasty, actually. But I
love the flavor.
All right, I gotta say this just because we're talking about the flavor of Suboxone. I've never taken it. I can tell you, I have no idea. But Ben's doing this crazy bodybuilder diet.
Yes,
and part of this diet is what do you have to drink? Metamucil.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
And so Ben, in Metamucil, they have an orange flavor. And Ben comes to me one day. He's like, you know what Metamucil tastes like? And I'm like, no. He's like, it tastes like exactly like Suboxone. And I'm like, oh. And, for me, I'm like, oh, that's cool, I guess, or not cool. I don't know. So Amy, don't ever drink Metamucil. At least for now.
It's like a Suboxone flavor slushy if you let it sit.
Yeah. All right. So for the sake of time, I want to get into this. So you get your Klonopin prescribed after completing the facility in Connecticut. You're home for 28 days. You call a doctor. Or was it the same doctor?
My same doctor.
And so she said, okay, I'll give it to you.
And I had told her I went to a facility to get off of the Klonopin. And then I manipulated her and said, I'd like to take some, but at a lower dosage.
And so she gave you a script.
But she gave me the same thing again.
And then you took 60 Klonopin in a 24-hour period.
Yes. And I wasn't intentionally doing that. I just continued taking them.
And you ended up in a blackout. You get arrested.
Yes. The
Do you
cops
remember
had to
any
take
of
me.
that?
No.
Yeah.
The last thing I remember, I went to the mall driving. I drove to the mall. I had my 1.5-year-old child in the car with me, drove home, and Children and Youth have already investigated this case. But after that, it was completely black for like 48 hours. And I was in the hospital with an OD, basically. They couldn't pump my stomach. I was sleeping induced coma for 2 days. And I almost had to go on a ventilator, but I did not.
Wow.
Yeah, and that started my detox journey. And then down to Florida.
Here's the other thing, like mixing opioids
Yes,
and benzos
Yes.
or opioids and alcohol, because alcohol and benzos are the same thing.
same thing.
There is so many warnings about that from the medical field, yet you literally have a doctor prescribing an opioid and a benzo. It's like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of
the hell?
experience with the benzos, and you see a lot of alcoholics are cross addicted to both. And I'll tell you, the last 3 years of my drinking, I was drinking, every day and then taking Xanax, Ativan, anything I can get my hands on. And it was a legit one big blackout. I don't remember none of it. I remember like the cars that I wrecked, and getting the DUIs and all those like very impactful moments. I remember those. But the overall last 3 years, I don't remember none of it. But okay, so you get to Florida.
Right.
You get arrested in were you in New York or
No,
Pennsylvania?
I was in Pennsylvania.
So you get arrested in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And did you make the decision like, okay, enough is enough. I'm going away somewhere for the foreseeable future?
Yes. I had definitely told my husband to get a rehab. I couldn't do anything for myself because I was not capable. I was detoxing. So, yes, but I decided to, go to rehab.
So, and this is, I think we pick up here, and we only got about 5-10 minutes left. I don't even know how we came in contact, to be honest. Oh, no, I remember now. So you were in a facility in Port St. Lucie.
Yes.
And I think you heard about us from one of the other clients there that was coming here.
Yes, I did.
And so anyways, they contact us and they say, hey, we have Amy here. She wants to attend your program, so on and so forth. And as we do with everybody, so as long as it's within driving distance, we will go and generally visit them. Or I think at the time I was actually going to pick up a client to drive them here. And I'm like, well, since I'm here, let me talk with Amy. And so we're sitting there and Amy walks in and, very nice. I remember though, you wouldn't take your sunglasses off. And I'm like, this is strange, but it was whatever. Mm-hmm. And the thing that you said was, okay, I'm on 2 milligrams of Suboxone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, uh-oh. I said, we're an abstinence-based program. And I don't think you knew that.
I did not.
You didn't know that.
I
and
did
then,
not.
but the cool thing was Amy was like, well, whatever. Yeah. And it was just like, and I even got like the little tinglies right now because
Yeah,
it was
I
think I'm speaking on behalf of you, but you obviously speaking of this. It was the first time I think that it ever registered for you that maybe I can be off of Suboxone.
Yes, you hit that on the head. I was at a low enough dose, and I'm going to give that credit that I got myself down to 2 milligram. So I thought in my head, I used a little bit of I used half of what you said, abstinence, and I'm already there. I'm so close to the finish line. I'm just going to surrender to it. I have not been abstinent since I was 14 years old. And so I was scared. I had a lot of fear, but I could see the finish line vaguely. You know what I mean? Because we don't see it for a long time after that, and that's okay. But I could see it, and that's why I took that jump.
So I think you were supposed to come to us on a Friday, and it was
Monday.
or a Monday
Yeah,
or
Monday.
something, and it was like, well, hey, if you want to give this abstinence based thing a shot, let's do it. Yeah. And I remember the first couple of weeks that you were here, it was, and everybody as far as the staff knew, like, okay, Amy's been on subs for many, many, many years. she's not going to feel good for who knows how long.
Who knows, right?
But talk about somebody that took it like a champ.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you're looking at a girl that came in here 21 years on Suboxone, bouncing in and out of jails and institutions and, being involved in the law, doctors co-signing the bullshit, just take this, take that, up this dosage, lower this dosage, so on and so forth for 21 years, basically. And in a split-second decision at that facility, which I don't think you had any intentions on coming off Suboxone at the time, but you knew I'm right there and capitalized on it. And then gets here and feels like absolute crap, but you were in every group. I think maybe you missed one.
Yeah, I missed one. Because
it was, rightfully so. And everybody's like, that's fine. If she needs to miss group, like, we'd rather her be at the house anyway. But like, grab the bull by the horns, and it's been like, and this is again why Ben and I are so passionate about the whole Suboxone thing, because now I want you to speak on this. You've been here now for how long?
60 days.
60 days.
Just in Rock.
Just in Rock. Mm-hmm. So you haven't had a Suboxone obviously for 60 days.
Right.
You've gotten to experience now a couple of months of what abstinence-based treatment, abstinence in and of itself has to offer. What's your thought processes now, both good and bad? Because I know there was an instance last week that you had brought up. So speak on that a little bit.
Sure. Mentally and physically, it took me weeks to feel better. I was able to function. I went to groups. I kayaked. I could do that stuff. I pushed myself. But then the mental part kicked in. The little voice in my head telling me that if I go back on Suboxone, I'll feel normal again. And that gets me almost choked up because I can't believe that I would think that, but that's my disease talking. I choose to call it disease. And I feel so much better the past few days that I can't even believe that I thought that. But those thoughts will come into my head, and I talked about it, and I played the tape forward, as they say. I thought, okay, if I call this doctor back, go back on this, where is my life going to end up? And I never had done that before. I would have just gone and did it. But this time I thought about, and I continue to think about the gratitude I have to not be on it. But I feel better, though, mentally and physically, definitely.
I think, too, I can speak for myself, and you and I, we've had a lot of sidebar conversations about this, but in particular with Suboxone and methadone, there was this feeling for me with abstinence of freedom, where for the first time in my life, I didn't have to wake up in the morning and the first thing on my mind before I brush my teeth, before I do anything, is where's my Suboxone?
Yeah.
Or going on a trip.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to be like, oh, I forgot my Suboxone at the house. Or I always kept like a few of them in my wallet, but what if I lost my wallet? And it was just constant anxiety. And to be able to wake up one day and be like, no matter what, today, I'm not going to get dope sick. What a relief.
Yes.
I just don't even know how to explain that freedom.
I don't either, but that's definitely what I used to think about. And my husband can attest to this, but it has ruined vacations, plans. I didn't get with a doctor. It ruined everything. Now I wake up and I don't have that anxiety anymore. I have gratitude. I thank my higher power and keep it pushing.
I want to give you such kudos. I've heard Tom tell that. He's told like that version of the story to me several times about the day he saw you when you weren't around. Because you could tell, like, we've talked about it a million times. Tom's not an emotional guy, but something about that moved him. Because he's brought it up to me like multiple times, you in particular.
Okay.
But I can't tell you how many times I get, and Tom can attest to this too, like we get phone calls and someone will be interested in rock because they see everything that we do as far as therapy, the adventure stuff, the working out. And then we get to the part where they're like, are you guys Matt Suboxone? And we're like, no. And instantly they just hang up. But that day, for whatever reason, you surrendered. And that's incredible.
The one part that I did leave out that I forgot, but I want, and it's funny. Do you remember what I'm going to say?
No, go ahead. I know.
So Amy's sitting there with her sunglasses on, and you could tell, like, we'd literally known each other for 5 minutes, and she's like, I don't care. I'll do whatever at this point. The only thing that I ask is, do you remember?
Oh, wait, yeah. Can I get my nails done?
She's sitting there. She's like, can I get my nails done when I get there? I'm like, I'm sure we can make that work. Yeah. And that was it, and she came here, and it's been an absolute honor to see this through with you.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as that decision too to come to rock, I don't want to make assumptions, but maybe your version of it. I get the impression that there was a couple fellow clients that you met in Detox Residential that meant enough to you and influenced you enough to follow along to rock.
Yes. Yeah. A male client and another female client were going to come here also. And that was a big motivator for me.
So I bring that up because I have this discussion with parents a lot. And in fact, it was part of a discussion that I had with the parent yesterday. Like, oh, this is going to be my kid's first time in treatment. Zero experience. Zero with any of this. And they're like, am I just sending him to a place where there's a bunch of junkies and he's just going to end up worse? And what I want to throw out there is that, in your case, you had a couple clients, and there's so much power in people with a like problem seeking out the same solution.
No, there is.
So, like, where a lot of outsiders have this perspective of, I'm sending them off to be with other junkies who are bad people. My son or daughter just made some bad decisions. They're not bad like them. The reality of the situation is addicts and alcoholics typically are absolutely wonderful people. And just there's something about that camaraderie, community. Yeah. You make these relationships with someone that's going through the exact same thing. You sat in detox sick together. Went through the same process together. It helps you relate, it helps you bond, and then you followed each other. And there's so much power in that. I want to throw that out there. Like, the clients tend to have more of an influence a lot of times on each other than we even do as staff. You have to have a good culture for sure.
Right.
And like you have having a good therapist, having a good frontline team that spends the majority of it, very, very important. But I always throw it out there, if I'm honest about it, staff's always the last to know.
Oh, yeah.
You all know more about each other in real life than because, like, when a client comes over to see me, like, they chip her up and become Captain Recovery for the moment, because they think that's like what we want to see, or they emulate or whatever. But the reality is, like, when you're in the house with the other ladies, you get to see them like, I'm not around any staff. I can just be myself, and say what I really want to say. Like, don't get me wrong. It gets to the point where, and we tell people, like, we want to hear the truth. You can tell us anything. Like, between all of our staff here, we've been through just about everything, whether it's divorces, jail, losing custody of kids, overdoses, you name it. Like, there's nothing you're going to tell us that we haven't experienced, and we're not going to judge you. It does take a minute to get that trust sometimes, but the effect that clients have on each other, I don't ever want to negate that.
Yeah. Amy, so what's your future hold for you, if you even know? Like, what's coming up next?
I'm just thinking about sobriety, definitely. Being abstinent has helped me so much. That I've discovered such a freedom here. It's just, I have to capitalize on it and keep moving. I choose to work the program of AA, and I will continue that and move on. I have a family back home, and I'm going to reintegrate into life the best I can, slowly. I know things from from past mistakes, I know things that I need to do better now.
Yeah.
And definitely.
Well, it's been an hour and 10 minutes. So
I could keep going with Amy. There was just so much there, man. Like,
yeah.
We'll have to have part 2.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
All right. Well, that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. And in the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And if you are on Suboxone and you want to get off of Suboxone, just reach out to us. We can help you do it. All right. Right, Ben?
That is correcto mundo, Tom.
Oh, jeez. And we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.
Bye.